evening and welcome to Youth 360. Welcome everyone to our Facebook page, on our viewers on EWTN, also on radio. So we say good evening and welcome to Youth 360. I know it's been a very, very long week for some of us. We had groovy semis, we had power soca semis, we had calypso. So a lot of things are hitting up and we are getting into the peak of the season. I know that most of you are excited, those who play and who partake in the carnival activities, and also our spectators who watch you. You're a part of the thing too, right? And those who are at home and just watch also, they're also part of the thing. So we continue with our carnival drive. Today we're going to have a very interesting topic, the origins of jab jab. You know, what people may call yay mass or devil mass. But we're going to get to the origins today and hopefully we get some clarity by the end of the program. But before we do that, we must, you know, be a responsible institution. And as church, we must be responsible and ensure that we look out for the safety of everyone. Last week, we had the probation department coming in and, you know, giving parents some advice. This week, we have lecturer and culinary lecturer and chef, Mr. Andre Church, who I must say also is my former classmate, St. Ruth Boys. So it's very good to have you on the program, Mr. Church.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Likewise. Good afternoon, viewers. I must say I'm doing good this season. While I'm not a partaker of carnival, but regardless, I believe food safety is something that's paramount and should be adhered to regardless of the season or the time, be it carnival, Christmas, New Year's, Easter or so, because bacteria and germs don't take a rest. Not because it's carnival or it's jab, it means they're scared. They're still around. And it's all about preventing contamination and preventing foodborne illnesses and so forth.
Okay, so, you know, I know we have to get into the meat of the things, but before we get into it, I want, you know, just give a brief background of yourself, you know, to let the people know who they are talking to.
Right, so Andre Church, I am a culinary lecturer, chef, and I am the owner and founder of RTA Services, Restaurant Training and Advisory Services. My journey started really when I saw my sister doing SBA exams and preparing for CXCs and so forth, and it piqued my interest and I wanted to learn more about culinary and so forth. I did food and nutrition and then I went on to GNCC. I worked at various hotels in the Spice Isle, and then I moved to Trinidad and Tobago where I would have studied and do my bachelor's degree in culinary management, worked at a few more hotels, and then I entered into the life of teaching and lecturing and so forth. So that's where my journey lies. Now I am a culinary lecturer at the T.A. Marisho Community College, locally here in Grenada. And I am also someone who is very keen on food safety, right? And I always tend to look out for, when it comes to food and food safety and the preparation of food, the handling, the storage, all that is encompassed in food safety, because it's no joke. But we love to eat, but we have to ensure that the food we eat is safe for human consumption.
Okay, yes, that is true, you know. I have a friend, if I'm going to buy something and she's like, hey son, but you sure you want to buy that food there? What do you know about the people? and that's why I want you to zero in today on how important it is for us as humans to look at food safety and food preparation.
Right. So it is something that is sometimes cast aside. Sometimes people do it without knowing, right? But it's always good to have knowledge, and knowledge is power. Food safety, regardless of whether you are home or preparing food for persons, and in this case, we're speaking specifically about street food vendors, persons going out there to prepare food and sell food, right? Once those things occur, food safety will always be paramount importance. Yes, you have flavor. You have to ensure that the food tastes good for repeat customers, but that's at the end.
Okay.
The consumer is at the end of that whole food chain. Food is being served. But there's much more steps before that, right? Including from purchasing of the items, receiving of the item, and in our case, we zero in on the street food vendors. So a lot of the preparation will occur at home. And you may go and purchase at your local supermarket, your local market. The guy down the street who is selling pork or selling chicken.
Okay.
Food safety starts as far as that, having reputable suppliers for your items. Ensuring if you are purchasing a case of frozen chicken, when you go to the supermarket, the shop, the guy down the road, or whoever is selling that, it comes frozen. It is received frozen. If it's fresh chicken or fresh pork, it is received that way.
Okay.
So we have to ensure it starts way back than what what the consumer sees on the street for Carnival or Juve or so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So then sometime the food poisoning might not originate from the person who is preparing the food, but rather it may originate from way back.
Correct. Food poisoning can take place at any time, or contamination can occur at any time throughout the food chain or the process. Because, as I said, there is from receiving to serving. So you have from purchasing, receiving, storage, pre-preparation. So you may get the case of chicken and you may thaw it out and start seasoning. That's pre-preparation. You will store it again. Right? Then you have preparation of the item. So we're now going to fry the chicken or bake the chicken, whatever is on the menu. After that, you have hot holding. So after frying the chicken, you will then have it in an area, in a chafing pan or so, outdoors for serving. So there's quite a bit of steps. And each step, you can have contamination occurring. Right? So for street food vendors, a lot of times, they don't have the perfect condition. Because it's not to say it's a hotel or a restaurant where we have a fridge just allocated for this. It's might be a shared space between their home items they use for domestic use and items used for the commercial preparation. Some folks may even have probably separate freezers, deep freeze for if they purchase in bulk. But we have to ensure that we have to know that food safety starts from then. Not just the fried chicken on the side of the road or the roast corn and all of that.
So in essence, you're telling the persons who are preparing the food that they have a duty to ensure that from then they are looking to ensure that they do not purchase or procure contaminated food.
Correct. Yes. Yes, we always have to ensure that we purchase from reputable suppliers. I know in the cottage industry, a lot of times we look for the cheaper deals, the best prices. I know Uncle Ben down the road, he slaughters pigs. So I'll go by Uncle Ben, I'll get it at a cheaper rate. But we have to ensure that Uncle Ben is slaughtering in good conditions and he is making sure that he follows the steps, because there are steps. I mean, we're not talking about agriculture and slaughtering of animals, but there are rules to follow from since then, from the rearing of the animal to the slaughtering and everything that goes with that. So it stems from all there, right? And as I mentioned before, storage, preparation, pre-preparation, and all of that, as it relates to food safety.
So
yes.
So that's interesting.
So
you have now the vendors now they have purchased the raw supplies and they are going to prepare it.
Yes.
What do they need to do to ensure that that does not get contaminated if it has not been contaminated already?
So there are different methods vendors may use. Some may do live preparation, that's on site. At the venue or on the side of the street where you'll see them set up and they may roast the corn or they may fry the chicken, fry the chips. Some may do pre-preparation of where they where they prepare the food at home.
Okay.
Especially if you're doing like actual food like rice and peas and a whole meal, you may want to prepare that at home and then transport it to the site. When that is being done, you are serving hot food. Okay. You have to ensure hot food is served hot and cold food is served cold. That's very important in order to minimize bacteria growth.
Okay.
And the thing about it is bacteria growth is something we don't see. We may quicker see physical contaminants, a stone, a piece of hair, a glass, a nail, a paper clip. I'm sure persons would have had experiences as it relates to finding a piece of plastic in something or a piece of hair in food. These are things that can be detected, and you may say, okay, I'm not going back there, or you may tell the person. But bacteria, right, in terms of contamination, you have chemical, physical, and biological. Biological is the bacteria. It's not really seen. And a lot of times at home, we tend to do the smell test to see, okay, let me see if this chicken was done for 3 days. Let me see if it's good. You smell it, okay. Not all bacteria also will produce a scent. Or at the stage of contamination, a scent may not be protruding from the item.
Okay.
When a scent is produced, that means it's really bad. It's gone, not going, but gone. But bacteria, as little as 2 hours at room temperature, once the conditions are right, bacteria starts growing and multiplying very quickly. So we have to ensure that our food remains hot to minimize bacteria growth. Right? So once again, if you have to walk them through, you would have done all purchase, season. Let's say you're cooking at home. Once you cook that rice, that soup, that whatever is on the menu, macaroni pie, you then have to ensure that it's hot. That's why some persons may invest in hot holders or warmers, even to transport the food. They call it cambrios, where they put the items in that container and it's sort of sealed. So it keeps that food hot in there, right? And it's easy for transportation, so no major spillage or leakage. Everything is somewhat contained, right? So these are investments that street food vendors should have. And these are the things even the consumers should look for. These are little telltale signs. So you see, okay, they have a hot holding, even though it's on the street under a tent. They have that cambrio, that area, that thing they pulling out the hot food from, putting it. So you're seeing, okay, that person went the extra mile in ensuring the food is hot, ensuring that the food is prepared properly, and so forth. You even have, for persons who are well, just to continue with the food being transported, you also have to ensure the transportation you're using is clean and not just a van that is used, all-purpose community van that is used to transport gas. Somebody wants to transport rubbish, they call him. Somebody wants to transport the same case of chicken that you purchased, they call him. You have to ensure that area is clean. The transportation, right? Clean, and you some people may put different things, probably put down a cloth and put the food, if it's in the cambrio and so forth, and they transport. The food have to remain hot throughout. If you look at some of the more reputable food establishments, you may see they have buses that is specialized just for that, transporting the food. You will see it. You will see the buses in different venues and so forth, ensuring that the food remains hot, even though they cook it at their kitchen or so, right? You have to ensure that you invest in warmers, right? Once you have those warmers, that's once again to maintain the hot food, to maintain that temperature, and ensure that there is no breakdown in temperature, and minimizing food safety and persons getting sick and so forth.
Okay, so very, very interesting information and very important information. I know we have to take a break, but before we take the break, I have this question came in. They want to know, a vendor went to buy the raw materials, and reaching home now and starting to prepare, they realize that there may be some contamination. They're asking, is there any way that, that said food can then be, for want of a better word, cleanse of the contamination, or do they have to just throw away the investment?
Well, the short answer for having, what should I say? If you are mindful and having a sense of integrity, you will get rid of the product.
Okay.
I mean, there's quite a bit as to what was the contaminant and all of that. But the short answer is you get rid of the product and you start over.
Okay.
You can, and that's why I say that's the short answer. You can probably, based on the contamination that's occurring in the product, you're speaking about the time of purchase, you can do what you call, we say recalls or denying of a product. Once again, if you purchase from a reputable supplier, you have your receipts, you can go back. So it depends on the type of contamination and where it occurred.
Okay.
Right? So let's say when you open that case of chicken, or you open the flour, or you see weevil in the flour, you can then say, go back to the supplier and say, listen, I bought this yesterday, I bought this 2 hours ago, and there's weevil in the flour.
I want to play devil's advocate here.
Go right ahead.
So I open the flour, there's weevil in the flour. So I then proceed now to get a container and pour out the flour to allow the weevil to walk out.
Yes, or you take a strainer and start straining, sifting the flour.
Is that advisable?
No, because the flour is already contaminated.
Okay, okay.
And especially, even for home use, more so if you're going to sell for persons, the flour is already contaminated with weevil and whatever toxins or droppings they would have laid in the flour and so forth. So you really don't want to use flour or any product that has been infested in weevil or any other live organisms, especially. Right? So in that case, you try to see, how can I get back my investment? And especially if it's a large investment where you probably bought 100 pounds of flour or so, you see how best. And that's why I keep on saying, you purchase from reputable suppliers so you can afford to go back and say, look, I have my receipt, look.
Okay. So listeners and viewers here, it's not advisable to let the weevil walk out or sift out the weevil from the flour. You're just creating a danger for yourself.
Correct.
Putting yourself at risk in the future. So we're going to take a quick break. And remember, we're talking with Andre Church, culinary chef and lecturer at GNCC. And when we come back, we're going to zero in now on, as a consumer, what do I look for or how do I handle food poisoning? We'll be right back.
Can you feel the wind that blows from the seas to the Caribbean? Dancing with oil in my pores, from the head to my toes, Lord. From for the morning to Juve, well, nothing the people play, well, nothing the people play, well, nothing the tongue. Costumes in feathers and gems, watch the girl them tell them way. So let me tell them, welcome to Spice Mass. So much niceness everywhere, make you feel to wind your ways. This is big carnival. the rhythm touch the bass, man the show mash up the place. It's woman and gun when we come round. Still pan and jam, look we all down. And it's mass everywhere. Look we hand in the air. Woman and gun when we come round. Still pan and jam, look we all down. And it's mass everywhere. Look we hand in the air. Alcohol in the head I can't beat. This is madness guaranteed. Can I feel love? This is real love. This is my cognitive therapy. This is where I have to be. Can you feel love? This is real love. From for the morning to Juve. Well, massing the people play. Well, massing the people play. Well, massing it up. Costumes in feathers and james. Watch the girl them tell them way. So let me tell them. Welcome to Spice Mass. So much niceness everywhere. Make you feel to wind your way. This is we carnival. When the rhythm touch the bass, man the show mash up the place. It's woman and rum when we come round. Still pan and jam, look we all down. And it's mass everywhere. Look we hand in the air. Woman and rum when we come round. Still pan and jam, look we all down. And it's mass everywhere. Look we hand in the air. Can you feel the wind that blows from the seas to the Carolina? From the seas to the Carolina. Dancing with oil in my pores, from my head to my toes, like. From for the morning to Juve. Well, massing the people play. Well, massing the people play. Well, massing it up. Costumes in feathers and james. Watch the girl them tell them way. So let me tell them. Welcome to Spice Mass. So much niceness everywhere. Make you feel to wind your way. This is me carnival. When the rhythm touch the bass, man the show mash up the place. It's woman and rum when they come round. Still pan and jam, look we all down. And it's mass everywhere. Look we hand in the air.
Welcome to Spice Mass, guys. Welcome to Spice Mass, but we cannot play Spice Mass if we get food poisoning. So that's what we're discussing today, you know, how to prevent it, and probably might get a little advice on how to get over it quickly. So Andre, we have discussed so far what the vendor who is preparing the food have to look for and have to do to prevent contamination. Now, as a consumer, I'm going to buy food. What do I need to look for? What do I need to look for when I'm there?
That can be a difficult question. But as a consumer, if I am to purchase street food, we're speaking about, because remember it's carnival, we on the street.
We're not
speaking about the restaurant and the good conditions.
No, we're on the
right?
whole day, we're on the carnage.
You're on the correct.
You're hungry.
You want to go and grab a chicken and chips, you want to grab some fish, some snack or something of that sort. As I mentioned earlier, first thing one needs to look for is to ensure that the food is hot. That's one of the telltale signs you look for.
Okay.
You may look around to see the conditions of the physical environment that person is working under.
Okay, so let me cut you here. So I go to buy chicken and chips and the fries are cold. What does that say? Do I then have to be wondering, oh God, is this contaminated? Or?
The thing with food safety, let me just make a disclaimer here. With food safety, there is so many rules that needs to be followed, and sometimes one has to weigh, the aspect of food safety and being practical on the streets. Because remember, on the streets you have the conditions. So rain might be falling, sun might be hot, wind might be blowing. All these things will cool down food at a faster rate. So you are working against the elements.
Okay.
So there are a lot of factors one has to ensure. But there are things persons can do as the vendors to ensure food safety. And once they do those things that we spoke about previously, we will ensure that the fries should be served hot.
Okay.
The chicken should be hot.
Okay.
Right? These are little things to say not to buy, because the fries, From a food safety expert, the answer might be no, but from a consumer point of view, you're hungry, and then it begs the question, as I said, what caused the fries?
So there are mitigating circumstances.
Yes, as I said, the elements and so forth. You also have to look at, as I said, the physical environment, how they keep their stall. Are they handling money and handling the food?
Okay.
These are little things that as consumers sometimes we don't focus on. And as vendors as well, we need to look at that. Yes, we want to minimize costs. The more persons you have working in your booth, the higher your labor costs will be. But it's efficiency. So you pay, then one person taking out, not one person, you're handling the money, they give you change, then they go and take out the chicken and chips.
Yeah.
No, you have to look at efficiency. And with Carnival, you make the money with volume. There's a lot of persons on the road, and so it's volume. So the aspect of food going cold, it should not happen, especially if you're cooking on site. You may have a longer wait for food than food going cold. Okay. If your food is going cold, it means, one, the conditions is not right, and two, okay, why is it that persons are not buying my food? Okay. Or maybe you prepared the food too early.
Okay.
So there are different things. From a consumer point of view, a lot of times we go out and we get that smell of that oil burning. That's some indicators that how you say, frying in old oil, as we say locally. These are some key indicators to know, okay, that oil needs to change. It begs the question, is that vendor looking to make a quick buck? They don't know, they're not sensing that oil that is just there, and is going to the item going to take longer to fry because the integrity of the oil is compromised, and now you get that toxic scent that is not good for both consumer and the person who is preparing. Right? So these are things that you have to ensure, making sure that the food is actually cooked. I mean, at that point, is in the tasting as a consumer. So if you get a piece of chicken that is raw, you should not continue eating it because you're hungry. You either bring it back or you count your losses and maybe go to another stall or so. So as a consumer, as the saying goes, as chefs, our job is to cook food and ensure it tastes good. Your job as a consumer is to control what you put in your mouth. So you have to ensure that what you are consuming, it's really fit for human consumption. Sometimes you can see issues a mile away. Yes, bacteria and contamination is not always seen by the naked eyes. But as I said, there are things that you can look for to ensure that, okay, this person, and based on the item that's being produced.
Okay. So you said that earlier, just to backtrack, the person may be handling money and handling food. Is there a standard for street side vending? Is there a standard, especially during the festive seasons?
Well, yes, they actually are standard. I actually work with my book from the Grenada Bureau of Standards. There is standards for street food vending. Actually, this is the code of...
And if the audience can see, they may want
code of hygiene, right, for street food vendors, and it has quite a bit of information. You can get this standard from the Grenada Bureau of Standard, located in Queen's Park. And there's a host of information here from, let me just go through some of it, from, as I mentioned, the place of preparation, final preparation, storage, transportation of raw materials and so forth, hygiene. It speaks of a wide variety of items for street food vendors. So each street food vendor should have one requirement for the marketing, even things like having water. Because especially if you're preparing on site, you need to have clean or potable water. How do you wash your hands? Is it that you just wipe your hand on your apron? These are things you have to look at. The tongue that you use, the serving utensils, is it the same tongue for the fish, the chicken, and the chips?
Okay.
If it will slow down the efficiency of the serving, and two, you will be cross-contaminating. Also, if you are frying chicken, you're frying fish, is it in two separate pots of oil or fryers? These are the things as a consumer you can look for.
Okay.
So these are the telltale signs. If the food is prepared beforehand, as I said, the rice, the peas, the pie, are they on warmers, or are they just sitting in a Pyrex dish on the table?
Okay.
These are the things you have to look for.
Okay. So when I go to buy, look around at the environment.
Yes.
See if they're handling the money. Because if they're handling money, I just walking out. I don't say sorry. Yeah. Make sure that they have water.
Yes.
One more question.
Sure.
In terms of, okay, so there are street food vendors, but are they catered for by the authorities who control the festivities? Like, do they ensure that they have the toilet facilities close by?
That personally, for Carnival directly, I can't speak much to as to what is being offered, because there will be booths throughout. So let's say between Grandans to St. George to Queen's Park, there will be a variety of booths, right? So to provide toilet facilities for each, that is a question for the Carnival Committee to answer. So as a vendor, you have to know, okay, this is my location. If I need to use the washroom, where can I go? What can I use? Is there a portable toilet close by, or a business area I can go and use? These are the questions. Or do I go behind a building and do my business? Right? You see that a lot. The reality is the latter that I mentioned.
Okay.
You go behind somewhere, you do your thing, you come back, you wipe your hand on your clothes, and you move on.
Yeah.
Sad reality. As a consumer, you may not always see that. You may not see that moment, right? I know of persons who sell not only for Carnival, but are street food vendors, and persons will say, okay, I'm not going there because he does go behind this building, or she does go behind and then I'm not even seeing water. How he or she is washing their hands. So people view, and then they put you in a bracket. So as street food vendors, you have to ensure your location that you're selecting, it is suitable and it have those conditions where you can go to refresh yourself, or you have to use some water. There is buckets, and you can put a pipe or a spigot, and you can have water, and you wash your hands as you go along, and you prepare your food. So consumers are seeing that, and it's good where you can go the extra mile as a street food vendor, and regardless of what you're selling, you go that extra, whether it's just barbecue chicken you're selling, they're seeing that setup and like, yes, because a lot of times barbecue chicken and potato salad, you have mayonnaise in there, and that is a killer. And the thing about it is, because you are serving so much persons, it is also said that as a surgeon could kill one person at a time on an operating table. But as a chef, you can kill or get about 200 persons sick with one case of chicken. I go out and I have my chicken and my barbecue, and 200 persons get sick because I did not practice safe handling or safe food handling practices. And we have to be mindful of those things.
Okay.
That's why I welcome like the project and the attention given to like places like Wall Street and so forth, because these are things, if you ask yourself, you go to Wall Street at 10 in the night, or even as a consumer, what toilet facilities am I using? If I want to use the washroom on Wall Street 10, 11 p.m., where am I going? Much less the persons who are there since 3 o'clock. Yes, there are businesses that might be open that will have toilet facilities. You do the homework. Go look at the research. Look to see how much potable water that's there. Look to see how they are storing the items. And a lot of times we make the mistake, oh, it came hot off the grill, it came hot off the fryer, so I don't need to put it in a warmer. While there may be some truth, because the high temperature in which frying occurs at 350 degrees, most bacteria dies at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, thereabout, right? And much less the temperature danger zone is really like let's say 40 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or 5 to 60 degrees Celsius. Food is cooked at if it's fries, cooked at 350 degrees Fahrenheit and so forth. So it's quite, bacteria will die, but you cannot just take that and say, okay, I'm going to hold my chicken or fish or fries at room temperature. And the person's going to come and consume it and they're not going to get sick. Most times we don't. Sometimes we do. And how do you know you get a dose of food poisoning? What are some of the telltale signs? You may get a little diarrhea, you might feel nauseated, a little headache, and those things. A lot of times it may not come on full blast because our body is trying to fight it off.
Okay.
So you may wake up this morning and you're like, okay, I think I have a little diarrhea. That might be a small dose of food poisoning you got.
Okay.
But it did not throw you down and have you hospitalized and so forth. But we have to look at those things. And another myth with food poisoning, we tend to blame the last food we consumed.
Okay.
Some bacteria takes time. The incubation period sometimes is 24 hours, 48 hours. So let's say you're sick today, Saturday afternoon, is after Saturday afternoon. You may have consumed that food Thursday.
Oh.
And it's now manifesting, but you blame the bacon saltfish that you ate this morning. You blame it on that, wherever you went and get it.
Wrong vendor gets blamed.
Wrong vendor gets blamed. So you have those things. Another thing one needs to look at that's trending now is allergies. And allergens and using the right utensils and ensuring that you separate things. Right? So there are different types of allergens. Okay. Things like even sesame seeds, persons can be allergic to. You have nuts and milk and dairy and the list goes on and on as it relates to allergens. That's another area that is trending now. Actually, when you look at, well, from the industry's point of view, when you look at there are different color codes for cotton boards. Right? Allergen, I believe, is purple. Right? So that's a new cotton board that is there for allergens. Or there are other, like, for example, dairy and so forth will be white, and breads and cheese. Green will be for vegetables and so forth. But allergens is, so if you are doing something and it may cause an allergic reaction, or it's high on the chain in terms of the allergens and so forth, there's a special cutting board to use even for those things. Okay. But regardless, all in all, food safety is very important, and I think street food vendors should really look into that and invest in ensuring the items they produce is safe for human consumption, because you are feeding a lot of persons. and you don't want persons to come down with foodborne illnesses. Personal hygiene is another thing as well. So as a consumer, yes, it's one thing that we see someone apron dirty. We may say, what, you're working a lot, but you're working hard. He has on a dirty apron. Full stop. Yes, he's working hard. We understand that. That is true. But have change of clothes so your parents.
Yeah.
Right?
Maintain that.
Yes. So you have to maintain a clean appearance. All that speaks as to the quality of food you produce. So there is a lot that goes into food. We take it for granted. And a lot of times with the food industry, because persons can just easily enter. And as we say locally, they turn their hand. Let me go and make, so I'm on vacation, let me go and make $1. Food yields, and there's money in food and so forth. And you just come and you decide, okay, I'm going and sell food for Carnival or for Christmas or 29 June, Fisherman birthday or whatever, Independence, whatever festival.
Okay. We
have to ensure that those things are maintained and adhered to.
So very interesting information, listeners and viewers. We are doing our part here. The most that we can do is ensure that we have the information readily available to you, that we plug in that information to you, right? However, you have to do your part. Vendors have to do their part. Consumers have to do their part. The providers of the raw materials, so the food, have to do their part. So, as we wrap up, Mr. Church, anything you want to say to our listeners and viewers before you go? We're heading now, King of the Grill, right?
Making persons know my location.
Yeah,
I may just do a detour. Right, but I'm happy you mentioned that. Even those events, they should have certain standards.
Okay.
Right? Competitions, because it's outdoors. Persons are coming to consume. Right? These places should have procedures and stuff in place. As a food vendor as well, you should have your food handlers. And in order to obtain your food handlers, one, you need to take a food safety course.
Okay.
Two, do a proper medical from your doctor. And there's a yellow card, I should have worked with it, a yellow card that the Ministry of Health has, that the doctor will fill out after doing those tests. And you provide that to the Ministry of Health for endorsement and stamp.
Okay.
That's another thing you can look for. These things should be visible.
Okay.
Right? And also there's this small card. Usually when you do that it's a yellow card similar to like a immunization card. You get it you carry it to the Ministry of Health for endorsement, and you have your photo, and they produce a small ID looking. Sometimes you see it clipped on persons on person's shirt or clothing wear. These are the things you can look for.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so listeners and viewers, you have the things that you can look for, right? Our consumers, you know what to look for. Our vendors, you know what to look for. I'd like to thank Mr. Church for his time today. I know busy schedule, have a lot going on, but probably we'll bounce up later somewhere.
Certainly.
So it was good to have you. Listeners and viewers, as I said today, we're going to be talking the origins of jab. But we had also do our duty of ensuring that you get public information, you get important information for your safety as you go out there and play the mass. So, you have Juve in July later, you have traditional mass in Victoria, you have King of the Grill in Monrouge. There's plenty of activities going on, but at the same time, be conscious of what you're doing, be conscious of what you're buying to eat, because at the end of the day, if food poisoning put you down, you can't enjoy the mass. So, enjoy the mass, but do it responsibly. So, the next song we're going to play is going to set the tone for our next guest. And, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to start talking the origins of jab.
Get down to roots, Remember we tradition for this Kambule, Jambalasi ruling this time. Yes, we everywhere, taking it from the grapevine. We breaking all rules with fun, kikong and rhyme. If the campaign didn't pass in the yard, they wouldn't have say, oh me mad bad, no joke, don't pass in the yard. You say to make it better, you make the stimmy finger. Now only 1 year later, this country have been heart failure. Hey, you vote, you don't vote, same damn thing. The heart or the hand, same damn thing. You change, we ain't change, same damn thing. You win, you don't win, same damn thing. Honesty, with it we must succeed. How can we grow without our basic needs? If you change your course, here could be paradise. Why strangle the hopes by trying to build on lies? If the taxman didn't pass in the yard, they wouldn't have said, oh, me mud bad, Mr. Finance, don't pass in the yard. We working for little money. Hey, hey, you take it back as you give me. You entry for CT, and now you kill me, be that levy. Hey, we vex, we don't vex, same damn thing. We talk, we don't talk, same damn thing. We walk, we don't walk, same damn thing. We pay, we don't pay, same damn thing. Nothing positive going on. What can it be? Like the password is kill we. Suicide on the increase. The drug trade is big business. If spare parts didn't pass in the yard, they wouldn't have said, oh me mother that DJ Cement don't pass in the yard. You want to make it a dance hall. It's a hospital. To get sick now is a mistake. Cause not one making the profit. Hey, you sick with those sick, same damn thing. You in or you out, same damn thing. You well, you do well, same damn thing. You dead, you do dead, same damn thing. Same damn thing.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. Moss International Jambalasi. Vote to the vote, same damn thing. Yeah. Well, I must welcome to our set at this time Mr. Angus Martin, historian and researcher.
Few things like that.
Also curator, I know of the title curator. And as I stated at the beginning of the program, we talking the origin of Jab Jab. And so on, and where it came from, because many people have the whole, should I say, doubt or debate or the opinion as to what Jab Jab represent, what where it came from, why it started. But we're gonna be discussing that today, and it's gonna be from the perspective of Mr. Martin. As I say, in writing history is right from a certain perspective and based on the evidence that is gathered, empirical evidence. So, Mr. Martin, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Jab Jab and the whole thing, but before we get into that, we have to understand, okay, why do we play Jab Jab? And it is played predominantly at carnival time in the different islands and countries where it is played. Where did carnival come from?
Right. I guess you could say carnival as we know it today is a Grenadian thing, it's a Caribbean thing.
Mm-hmm.
But of course we know that carnival itself, that practice of carnival that we do in the Caribbean here, goes back to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of carnival and how it's organized. And not just Europe in the sense that larger Europe, but also specifically Catholic Europe.
Mm-hmm.
That carnival in Grenada is linked to the church calendar.
Okay.
It's what the church, it's a pagan festival that was brought into the church, as many other things have brought in gaining believers in the faith. So the idea that was in bringing that in, you incorporate it in church calendar so that this happens right before Lent. So it was allowing the believers to get rid of the sins of the flesh before you enter that long period of penitence, which was Lent. And that giving up of different things, of giving up of meat, giving up of alcohol and other things. So it became a time of excess before you get into this period. And of course, with the French being in Grenada, in 1685, the French instituted the Code Noir, or the Black Code, which is how enslaved people were governed.
Okay.
And one of the things was that Catholicism would be given to the slaves, that the slaves would have to be baptized and things like that. In 1685 and continuing during the French period. And that in itself accounts for why the majority of Grenadians, or plurality of Grenadians, are Catholics still today, even after 200 years of British rule and multiple other religions coming in over the course of the last few hundred years. So in doing so, many things, many Catholic holidays and so on became entrenched, embedded in the culture. And many of them, we have Fisherman's Birthday was just mentioned, Christmas, all of those things are related to the church, and Carnival in that sense is no different, because it was a church-sanctioned event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have this, right? So you said that they brought it over, but was there at any time, was there a mix of carnival in terms of African tradition and European tradition?
Right. We'd say beginning of carnival in these islands would take on a very local affair.
Okay.
We know that because of the fact that it was tied to the Catholic calendar, that it's in certain islands, because Barbados did not have a carnival.
Okay.
They had crop over. It's only now they have carnival, which they link to crop over. Jamaica as well, Antigua, all of those places did not have carnivals.
Oh.
Because of the British and because of Anglicanism, their celebrations happen a lot at Christmas time and New Year's.
Okay.
So when you're talking carnival, we're talking Martinique, Guadeloupe, Haiti, Grenada, some Dominica and some St. Vincent, St. Lucia, because they had French influences. Trinidad is interesting. Trinidad was never French, but many French went to Trinidad, especially from Grenada and some of the other islands, which is why Trinidad has that large concentration of French people and French culture, and Carnival is one of the big things that came out of so many French people moving to Trinidad. It was a Spanish colony, very underpopulated, and in the 1770s, many Grenadian French went there. It was actually a Grenadian Rome de Saint Laurent, that actually went to the Spanish to get permission for all of these French to go there because they didn't want to live under the British rule in places like Grenada and St. Vincent and St. Lucia after the British took those over. So many people ended up in Trinidad. So that's where we see the blossoming of French culture in Trinidad. Unfortunately for the French, the British took over the island in the 1790s. So they've still remained under the British, and many of them stayed because there wasn't anywhere else to go in a sense. So we do see that Carnival end up becoming really big in Trinidad, but a lot of the influences came from the smaller islands. We know that specifically when you look at some of the masquerades. In Trinidad today, there's still a masquerade called the Perro Grenade.
What does that mean?
It means the Perro, and again, we have some issues with that first Perro because we've used French Creole, we never wrote it down. People think it's a clown, and there's some elements of that in it, but actually some of it is, one person described the Perro may actually different, it's the country king, and not the clown as we envision it. And it's the Grenade is the French name for Grenada. So it still has that name, and it's still played in Trinidad. And it takes on, we don't play it anymore in Grenada. It went out in Grenada, but it still remains in Trinidad. And we have like Jab Molassie that came from Grenada, went to Trinidad, is still called the Jab Molassie in Trinidad. And it's the Jab Jab we have here. The Jab Jab that went to Trinidad is a different thing. It's actually more like the Shakespeare Mass and the Shortney combined in some of the things that it does. So in us studying Grenadian Carnival, we could actually look to Trinidad because some of the things went there earlier on and then came back.
So differently. Because that was the next question I was going to ask you, because there are so many also debates regarding where Carnival started. Many people say Trinidad is credited for it. Others say it came from the islands up higher up, like Grenada, St. Vincent, because they say at that time many people migrated there, because of also work opportunities and so on. So it kind of helps us now to understand, okay, where Carnival came from. The whole issue of Canboulay, which is the beginning of Carnival celebrations. I think it's highlighted in your book. Was Canboulay the beginning of Carnival celebrations in the islands?
I think Canboulay can be looked at, that is the enslaved people and their descendants, that's their contribution to Carnival. Because these were activities among themselves that eventually, and we think that a lot of it was happening, it ended up being part of the August emancipation celebrations. So when they got involved in Carnival, that was transferred. And even, up until the 70s and stuff, we still made a big thing about the Sunday night. Because you remember the whole Dimanche Gras stuff came back from Trinidad. Grenada didn't have that Dimanche Gras stuff until that came back from Trinidad. Steel band, King and Queen and the band. That's an interesting part of it, that in the 1700s and the 1800s, things went to Trinidad. In the 1960s and 70s, it came back to Grenada. So Grenada's had this continuous back and forth in terms of people, but also culture. So there is that exchange that has been going on. So the debate over who got what and when, I think we just need to realize that there is this deep relationship between Grenada and Trinidad, between Grenadian peoples. Like I said, every Trinidadian can trace their ancestry to either Grenada or St. Vincent, because so many people went there. So with those people went these cultural aspects. And of course, when Grenadians came back here, for example, steel band, came back in the 1940s from Trinidad. So we know of that continuous back and forth and with culture. So Canboulay in a sense really became the immediate contribution of enslaved people and their descendants after, in the post-emancipation period, to Carnival. So they combined the things that they were doing, because they were not really allowed to participate in the elite or the activities under the French. But they were they could have been involved as musicians and things like that, but it really wasn't until post-emancipation that they really got involved.
Okay, yes. In your book, you did say that it was carnival was a thing of the elite,
right?
And probably some of the free colors,
right.
And however, the slaves would be sort of like musicians and so on,
right. I do have a description from 1828 I would like to read a little piece of.
Sure.
The island of Grenada was once entirely Catholic, and although it has now long been a possession of the English, there are still some French inhabitants and a great many of the ancient religion in the colony. The carnival is therefore even now a time of gaiety, although the masquerades and fancy balls which enliven the island of Trinidad during that season have been long since done away with in Grenada. The good Catholics, however, account it a duty to put on mask and thereafter and therewith to enter the houses of the worthy people of Georgetown, and to amuse them with such behavior as best beseemeth the characters they sustain. There are also a few graceless young Protestants who are sometimes wont to join them in their merrymaking. So this was the commencement of the carnival, and though the two first masks had made their entry rather roughly and their exit with as little ceremony, there were many more who followed with more politeness and amused us not a little during the evening. So it talks about what carnival was practiced like. This is in 1828, so this is during slavery. Okay. It does mention a few Negro boys and girls taking part in the activities. So people went from house to house, they entertained, and they were either given food or drink.
Okay.
So that's basically the carnival that we're talking about. The street carnival now that will develop in the post-emancipation period, different.
Okay.
And that's where the camboulet and all of that becomes, the stick fighting and the competition between villages. That's when we see, it changes.
Okay. Now, there is this theory, right, that during slavery, that the slaves used to adorn themselves with molasses and parade through, and that the planters and the elites would run from them. Does that hold any?
Right. There are lots of theories and interpretations of stuff. One would ask, my first thing would be, is that reasonable to think would happen? Molasses was something that was valuable. The enslaved people would not have access to molasses unless they were given as rations, which they would have, but very little, which would mean that's what they sweeten their tea and stuff like that with. Everything else was exported because it was valuable. So the idea that people would be given molasses to just rub on their bodies and, and that's not how the molasses devil or the Jab Molassie worked. Actually, and even it's still practiced in Haiti today, you take the charcoal, the crushed charcoal, and you put it in molasses.
Okay.
Or the sugarcane juice. You basically mix that up, and then you put it on your body.
Oh.
So when we talk about Jab Molassie, there is really not a molasses. It's really, the molasses just how you put the stuff on. Later on, we get oil and other kind of stuff, which allows you to put that stuff on. But really, it's the molasses, that mixes with the charcoal, because it's still the devil. It's still the devil mask that you're trying to create.
Okay.
So there are lots of theories that have come out of, of jab. I think sometimes, as they say, the saying goes, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. The simplicity of how it began, is probably what we should be looking at. All the grand theories is what came after. Yeah.
Okay, guys, so we're going to take a quick break, and we are discussing today the origins of Jab. However, we had also put it in context as to carnival, where the carnival comes from. So we will have gone through some of that, and when we return, we'll be going on to the origins of Jab and what it represents for us as a people. We'll be right back.
Get breaking all rules with fun, picong, and rhyme. If the campaign didn't pass in the yard, they wouldn't have say, oh, me mad bad mood, okay, to pass in the yard. You say to make it better. You make the stimmy finger. Now only 1 year later, this country have been heart failure. Hey, you vote, you don't vote, same damn thing. The heart or the hand, same damn thing. You change, we ain't change, same damn thing. You win, you don't win, same damn thing. Of honesty, with it we must succeed. How can we grow without our basic needs? If you change your course, here could be paradise. Why strangle the hopes by trying to build on lies? If the taxman didn't pass in the yard, they wouldn't have said, oh, me mud bad, Mr. Finance, don't pass in the yard. We working for little money. Hey, hey, you take it back as you do. You ain't pay for CT, and now you kill the dead lady. Hey, we vex, we don't vex, same damn thing. We talk, we don't talk, same damn thing. We walk, we don't walk, same damn thing. We pay, we don't pay, same damn thing.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers, and we are discussing with Angus Martin the origins of Jab Jab. Now, Mr. Martin, we would have discussed, the carnival and the whole set the foundation. Now, you have after the match, you have Juve. Jab Jab and Juve, is it the same?
Jab Jab is one of the masquerades. It's one of the old masks, one of the traditional masks that show up in Juve. Juve is the activities that began early in the morning of Carnival Monday, that will go on to around midday. Most of the people are out by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, depending on when we start. But yeah, it's part of was really the heart of Carnival. The old mass, the cowhead mass, the donkey mass, the jamet, all of these things that go back, to the late 1800s, early 1900s, that really dominated Carnival. Those are the things that happened at Juve. That was like the heart of Carnival, when everybody got an opportunity to express themselves,
Now, because it's interesting, because I was told that people see it now as just, jumping. But before, it was very highly, it was very instrumental and important for the people, because they stated that there was a ceremony to start the Juve or some proclamation being made.
Right. And I think in the early part of they would have had these sort of ways of controlling, I guess, in a way. The gun went off in the fort, to start the Juve and things like that. So there was this organized. But I think there was nothing more chaotic than Carnival. I think because everybody allowed, in a sense, was doing what they wanted to do. Carnival has always been about the turning around of stuff. You didn't have to be who you were. You had the opportunity to be anybody else. Even when the French played it, the French master or the white person would play the role of an enslaved person by putting on field clothes. The Nègre Jardin is one of the common Carnival characters that was played. So just as how the enslaved person would want to become the king or the queen, you had the reversal. That's what Carnival was about. It's a reversal of roles. Men dressing up as women. The peasant becoming the king. And we see that happen in European carnivals and stuff as well, because carnival gave you that opportunity to assume somebody else, to get to a higher, sometimes lower, but in a sense, it's just a reversal of the roles that you usually had, within society, in everyday society.
Okay. So that would lead me to a question which I wanted to ask later on in the program, but I think now is the right time. Now, so it's a reversal of roles. And many people would debate, Jab is devil, or Jab is a person portraying the devil, and Jab is letting the devil into your life. What's your take on it from your research?
Right. Well, definitely, Jab is not devil worship.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody that worshiping the devil. I see Jab, and looking at Jab is one of several devil masks that you have throughout the region, not just in the French islands, but also, and they're different incarnations of that devil mask that you would see across the region. The Jab in Grenada, I think, have its origin in the Jab Malassi. The Jab Malassi is like the progenitor, the original Jab. And that, to me, developed from it's Grenadians in playing carnival, that role reversal, assume the role of the devil. This is a devil that they grew up with, that they were afraid of, and connected to hell, a place where nobody wanted to go. So I see it as a way of conquering their fears and of also assuming the power as well. So you dressed in this form, you took to the streets, you commanded people. You commanded people were afraid of you, But there's a little irony in it, of course, and there's the joviality of it. There's humor in it. So that they've taken over the role, they've conquered their fear, but they've now taken that fear to other people. The original Jab song, Ule ulambe Jab, ule ula Jab, give Jab a kopo, which is money, to pay passage to go back to hell.
Okay.
That's what Jab used to be singing. And it wasn't these large bands as you would see today. It was normally a small group of people. Normally one person is the devil.
Okay.
The chains were used to restrain the devil, and that was held by imps, which was the devil's helpers from hell, and they were normally little boys that would hold the devil, restrain them from causing trouble. Of course, they had horns on the devil, which sometimes they would either have a whip or the trident or the fork kind of thing, and the red lips, and they used to have clangs, like long fangs on, that would make noise. They were metal.
Okay.
Yeah, and the blood dripping from their mouth, and snakes around their neck. And I think the snake, again, associated with Christianity and the devil, the snake in the garden. I think those are some of the things that come right out of Christianity, of the Catholicism. Other people disagree, of course. Other people see these as different manifestations. But I think that, to me, is where the devil, the Jab came out of.
Okay. Now, what would you say in present day today? Because I know there was this outcry when the team a few years ago was done of 100,000 Jab.
Right.
And people say, okay, well, we are letting the devil enter into Grenada.
Right.
In present day today, what is your take on it?
Right. I think it's unique to Grenada. And we should see the Jab as the people that create the masquerade. We should see them as artists, because that's what they're doing. That whole idea of the creative economy, and that's exactly what you want to look at. It's people taking their history and culture and creating a character out of it, and performing that character. That's Carnival is our greatest performance. And you should see these practitioners as artists creating, and when you look at Juve Morning and you go through the streets and you look at some of these, the whole idea of somebody started putting that saltfish or roasted manikou in the mouth and just leaving that there. Somebody started that. There was an artist sometime that decided to do that because they had banned the snakes and stuff, so people had to come up with different things that adorn the body and make them grotesque. That's the idea, that you want to be fearful, So we used to make the helmets with posy, the chamber parts on the head. Now we make with what's available. So it's the construction hats. So you look at, it's people really creating a character that is supposed to live up to our idea of what a jab jab is. And we see it in other masquerades and some of the other traditional masquerades. So it's not just jab jab. All of these individuals that take to the street are creatives who are coming up with something that would awe the audience and make people remember, because people go and talk, did you see that character? I think there was one from last Carriacou Carnival. There was a picture with the guy with a manicure in his mouth or something like that. Yeah. And it's remembered, that kind of thing. It's like he created that canvas. So seeing him as an artist creating that canvas that will live on, that to me is how we should see, Carnival. And the idea of the devil itself, it's really just the creation of a character. It really has nothing to do with what people believe per se.
Okay. Also, I want to go back a little to earlier on, right? And when you stated that, that you don't think that, molasses would have been used. However, there's also this theme coming out from the whole carnival and the jab aspect, especially that jab was used as a time when people would rebel or would actually state how they feel, and as you have just said it, they state how they feel. And you would see it in today's, there's an energy that resonates when you play jab. Or it unifies the people. Your book did not speak about going back to the days of slavery, but it spoke about 1973, when Gary said no jab.
Right.
And it also spoke about during the pandemic era, when the government at the time stated, okay, you're in a COVID period, so we cannot allow this to happen.
Right.
And that's the time you saw the most amount
of jab.
of jab.
Right.
And they were going toe to toe with the police, not afraid.
Right.
From your research, why is this? And then would it then bring you into a deeper field of research in looking back at slavery and seeing, did the slave actually use this time to rebel and put the planters and make the planters be afraid?
Right. Other than Fedon's rebellion, there is no evidence of rebellions in Grenada. Enslaved people were running away all the time. We have Maroons, going into the hills, Pedmota, those kind of things. So we do have evidence of people running away from the plantations and things like that. Some people left the island on boats and things and never came back, So we do have examples of Maroons, but in terms of Carnival as being a time of rebellion, I think the one would say that the government, and there really was no involvement in during slavery. It's post-emancipation that we're really talking when Carnival develops into the street carnival that resonates today, that looks like what it does today. So, I know there are lots of people's interpretation that Carnival, that the jab especially is the way people interpret the slave master and stuff like that. Like I said, I shared with you what I believe, it to be. I think post-1970s, Carnival definitely, jab definitely changed. I think and it wasn't the first time that jab was banned. Actually, we know back in 1911, we actually have an individual who was here and wrote about jab, about what would probably be Shortney and Shakespeare Mass and stuff. The development early in that period mentions that actually, that he says, and the natives used to cover their bodies with soot and pitch, like the sackcloth and the ashes of the Bible, but instead of doing penance, they got into the habit of running amok and soiling spectators' clothes, so it had to be stopped. So we're talking about in 1911, jab was banned. So we know jab was going on. Whatever form, I think some people refer to it as yay, So we know that jab was going on, but it was banned. And I think there are other times, in the 1970s, for example, when it was banned, it was banned under the government of Eric Gary. And I think some people use that as a protest against him and his government as well. So we saw these bigger bans of jab from certain areas, St. Paul's and some of the other country areas, that felt they were pushing back against Eric Gary. And that's when we see the massive bans that would come off in the later years. So then Jab Jab became a thing to protest, a means of protesting and resistance to whatever the government may have wanted to push. We also saw during that period, wearing a mask was banned, because of some of the battles with the Veco and the Shortney and that kind of stuff. Because Carnival was about payback. Carnival was about different communities fighting each other. Which one was best. Like I said, the whole article from 1911 was of the clash between Chantimel and Surtez in Surtez. So a lot of Carnival was really about different communities fighting each other. Who's trying to outdo the other, and said it was also payback, because the only time you could do somebody damage and not get arrested for it.
Wow.
So there was a big part about Carnival was about, that's why people kept stick fighting. That was a big part of Carnival, but that was eventually just pushed back because people were being killed. We have a case back in the early 1900s when somebody got hit with one of these sticks and died. So Carnival was chaotic and violent. And in the attempt to change that, all of the masses like Shortney and those guys lost their stick, even though sometimes they would carry a stick, a little, a bull pistol, but it really was about confronting other groups.
Okay.
And doing battle. So I think after the 1970s, we see Jab Jab taking on that whole thing about protesting and about resistance.
Okay.
And then with the pandemic, definitely the jab must play, became the expression. It's like you can't stop the jab. The jab must play. And it has assumed that role of protest. And of course, with that, then you have these interpretations that go back all the way to slavery and try to give the jab a history or narrative that fits with what it's used for today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still amazed by what you said. Carnival was the time when you could do somebody anything and not get arrested.
Yeah, because it's Carnival you're playing. So people used to go look for, we have this example when this guy's talking about 1911. And this guy sees somebody on the side of the road that's watching Carnival, and he had a thing with him before, and this was his opportunity. He just went up to him and whacked him. And the guy just ran, because it's Carnival. People playing mass. Like they say, you can't play mass and Fred powder. It's like it's Carnival was a time to battle.
Okay.
What's when you look at Shortney bands, could you tell which one is which?
Sometimes.
You would have to know them well. The reason they wear the same costume is that you can't distinguish which is which. So if one person hits you, you can't find that one.
They do have a different pattern though.
But within the same band, they all have the same colors and stuff.
Yeah, within
the same band,
yeah.
Yes. So you could know it's from a band, but you wouldn't know which one within the band. You're right. Yeah. And within all of these masquerades, all of these, Shortney, Veco, or Chantimel, all of these masquerades, even look at the whole Shakespeare mass. Actually there's Oliver Benoit, who teaches at SGU and is an artist. His interpretation of Shakespeare mass is basically a reenactment of the colonial classroom, where you were beaten to memorize stuff from the royal readers, which is the text that people had, Shakespeare being one of them, Julius Caesar. And people just took that to the street.
Oh.
So sometimes it's the simplicity of it, and it really, of course, what we add to it later on, as we continue to play it, creates the mythology and everything around it. But sometimes it's just a simple event that people commemorate or reenact.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that carnival whereby you can do somebody anything and not get arrested, was that what was brought in by the Europeans, or did the Europeans then?
Right. No, that's totally Grenadian. That you would say would be the influence of community, what we created in Grenada. As part of Grenadian culture, the whole competition, between groups was taken to a different level.
Okay.
You know, I would see that as the very Grenadian aspect, you know, or the Caribbean aspect of of Carnival.
Okay.
That was because you know when you know I read the little piece about what Carnival was like during slavery, during the French, under the French or the British, and that was a very house to house, people go in and scare people, but still people knew who they were and stuff like that.
Okay.
The street carnival, the chaos, the fight in the groups, that is the descendants of these enslaved Africans that basically created that.
Okay.
In using pieces of their own culture as well.
Okay.
You know, they masquerades. We look at Moko Jambi.
Okay.
You know, it's a very West African. You know, it's probably the most African. You know, of all of the traditional masquerades. You know, and people look at, you know, there may be some elements within some of the other. Some people look at the short knee as possibly having elements from the Egungun, which is a Yoruba a masquerade that's part of their religious practices.
Okay.
So
Where did
they-
Veko come from?
Veko is a difficult. Actually, there are two elements of Veko. Normally, there's two different Veko. There's the ones with the long road with the cross on it, the red. Well, now you can see many colors. But then there are the guys with the caucus bag type military uniform, you know, with the headpiece. Two of them very different. The ones with the cross, with the coffin and all of that, looks like a procession. It's the battle of good over evil. But in Trinidad, they say that comes from the commemoration of Christ's going to heaven, you know, his ascension.
Okay.
You know, and that's how that stuff developed. And again, you see the connection between the church and Carnival. You know, I'm still puzzled about the military, the French military one, the other aspect of the Veku. But so yeah,
I
though
think it's because the caucus bag does not stick to you when you sweat.
that it became part. Again, somebody was saying, "Oh, these things go back how many hundred years or whatever," and you're like, and then somebody's like, "Well, I think I know that the clogs itself came in the 1930s, because cocoa people who had to carry cocoa were falling down when they had to walk with a cocoa on their head, so they put nails in their shoe, and in the process of walking in the town, it started scraping, and somebody got the idea to include the masquerade. So sometimes elements come in from different unexpected places, and it creates this thing, and then we build a mythology around it.
Okay.
You know, which is what we do with every part of culture.
Okay. Yes, guys. I had us to bring in the Veko. You know, being from St. Max, I couldn't disregard the Veko. I hear all other names calling and couldn't disregard. So yes, but you know, it's interesting, and I want to go back there to when you stated that, you know, the church at the time would have adopted that pagan festival. What was Carnival like before the church would have adopted it, and was there any change in it? Because it seems to me that it then became a time of whereby it brought about some type of camaraderie and unity among the people. What was that pagan festival like before?
I think any activity, when you look at Carnival is one of them, it does bring people together. You know, Carnival is camaraderie, people playing together, people getting drunk together. You know, I think Carnival definitely creates, you know, it's a national celebration. I really don't know, you know, what it would have been before.
Okay.
Because we're talking hundreds of years ago when that came into the Catholic Church and other Christian faiths, when they brought in what the people were already doing, you know. But there may have been other things like maypole and all these other kind of things that would come in. Again, it's that thing of making fun sometimes of authority as well, could have been part of it, which is still part of Carnival today. When you see some of the old mass, you know, that's what old mass is. It's to make fun, you know, of authority, politicians, you know, making up things about them as well. So I think all of that, and it's still part of Carnival, even today. So I think, I don't know what happened before, but all of these are things that have continued, and of course they've been reinvented. You would say that a lot of it is reinvented in the Caribbean because it has to reflect the environment that it's in.
Yeah.
So it may have been something that originally came from Europe, but it got totally rearranged, because of our Creole society, that we take things from different places and create a mesh, as we call it, kalalu. And what comes out of it is totally Grenadian or Trinidadian or whatever, you know. So, you know, look, Trinidad is well known today for the Blue Devils. You know, that is a result of Jab Jab that went there from Grenada. And now they have their Blue Devils. And again, it has all the implements or the accoutrements of a devil, you know, the horns, and now they even have wings, you know, which could be a connection between angels having wings and the devil and all of that, you know. They have their tails, you see them with the tridents, and now they have the fire part of it. You know, and there are people that contend differently, but my thing, sometimes what you see is what it is. You know, how people regard it though, how people see it and how the importance they place in their lives. You know, I would say, listening to some of the stuff about Jab Jab, some people it's almost a lifestyle. You know, today that some people, the way Jab Jab, like they're playing Jab Jab since the end of December.
Yeah, every weekend is a Jab Jab. Every weekend.
Yeah, you know, so I think people are finding more and more in it, you know, to that seem to be part of their identity, you know, as the ones that say the jab must play, you know. You know, so it's taken on a different role, but and that's why we sometimes, when something changes in our lives, we give it a back narrative, and it doesn't have to be true or not. It doesn't have to be based on fact. Identities are based on mythologies. You know, it's done everywhere. It's not just Grenadians or Trinidadians. It's done in Europe and everywhere. People will make things up to fit however they want to see it, because identity is created.
Yeah.
You know, and if we know a history, we will use that. You know, and I think sadly sometimes we don't know a lot of our history to be able to be creative. You know, so.
Okay. So guys, we are talking today with Angus Martin, historian, about, you know, probably getting some insight about the origins of Jab Jab and how it came today. However, we have to take a break, and when we come back, I know we are out of time. So when we come back, we'll just wrap up the program. But however, don't go anywhere, because we still have a little bit more information for you, okay? So we'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Get down to roots, remember we tradition. For this Cambule, Chambalasi ruling this time. Yes, we everywhere, taking it from the grapevine. We breaking all rules with fun, kikong and rhyme. If the campaign didn't pass in the yard, they wouldn't have say, oh, me must bad motor paper pass in the yard. You made to make it better. You made to sting me finger. Now only 1 year later, this country have been heart failure. Hey, you vote, you don't vote, same damn thing. The heart or the hand, same damn thing. You change, we ain't change, same damn thing. You win, you don't win, same damn thing. Honesty, with it we must succeed. How can we grow without our basic needs? If you change your course, here could be paradise. Why strangle the hopes by trying to build on lies? If the taxman didn't pass in the yard, they wouldn't have said, oh, me must bad, Mr. Finance, don't pass in the yard. We working for little money. Hey, hey, you take it back as you do. You entry for CT, and now you killing the dead lady. Hey, you vex with no vex him down there. You talk talk, we don't talk, same damn thing. We walk, we don't walk, same damn thing. We pay, we don't pay, same damn thing.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to Good News Catholic Communications in Youth 360. And today we have Angus Martinier, historian and curator of the National Museum. And we're just talking about the origins of Jab Jab. You know, I think that it would have brought some insightful information about Jab Jab, what it represents for us as a people, and also what he would have discovered in his research. You know, before we go to the wrapping up part, I want to ask you, the carnival of post-emancipation and then pre-emancipation and then carnival today, how do you see it? Have you seen it as an evolution, or have you seen it as, let's say, a breakdown? How do you see it?
Well, I think culture is a constantly changing thing. There is no culture that stays static. We tend to forget that. Even though we know that, I think we forget that. The carnival of my mother was different from the carnival of my grandmother, of my great-grandfather. Everybody has a different. You know, we always talk about the generation today, they ain't remembering this, people change. We take baggage from one generation to the next and we leave some. You know, whatever we don't need, we discard. You know, so there's a constantly change in evolution that takes place in culture, and Jab Jab or any other masquerade is no different. I think people tend to think that they keep doing the same thing, even as they change it. You know, like if you look at the Veku, those headpiece and stuff were not things you would see 50 years ago. You know, I think some of it is actually they influence the young people that are doing it, influenced by the video games. You know, so I think we're constantly getting things from other places that are coming in. You know, sometimes we're not even aware of it. We watch YouTube, we watch television. You know, something comes in. Again, we're artists. That's how I look at them. They're artists, and they get influenced by different things. Look at those guys from La Fillette, you know, with the red paint or the red clothing pieces. It started off in the 80s with just bandanas.
Okay.
You know, and then you look at Martinique, and they actually do red devils. You know, so you're like, are they seeing, you know? And I know there are people who have seen Cameroon. There's some what looks like Jab Jab from Cameroon. But I'm actually contended that those Cameroonians saw Caribbean Jab Jab and adopted it, because in earlier renditions of that same festival in Cameroon, there are no Jab Jab. So sometimes, that's why I say you have to look at which came first, you know, kind of thing, who took from whom.
Yeah.
Because we're, as a people, we're constantly interacting and taking things from others. You know, sometimes we appropriate without knowing that we are appropriating, because we incorporate it into our celebrations and things like that. So you have that constant exchange of ideas, you know, between people. Like I said, think of these carnival people as artists, you know, and things come to them in different ways. So they're constantly altering and trying to make their masquerade or whatever better, their character more memorable, that you're going to remember that portrayal, you know, for generations, and they're going to be legendary. And that's what they're trying to do. And that's why they're willing to pull ideas and pieces from everywhere. You know, I would love to find out who is that first person that decided to hold a piece of saltfish in their mouth. You know, because look at the impact on the Jab Jab today.
Yeah.
You know, that everybody...
Or they have a pighead pushing in a baby straw.
Yeah, it's crazy. It just seems totally ludicrous. It's totally crazy, but that's what makes the Jab Jab so interesting. You know, and people find it humorous, but also a little scary. You know, so I think all of those things is what goes into creating this thing. And some of these guys have been thinking about this from the year one card jab finish. for the next one, they're already trying to come up with these ideas that's going to make them memorable and have that really cool photograph, you know. So, yeah, I think seeing them as artists would actually allow us to recognize that they're just creating, and this is not about people believing in the devil or anything like that. There really is that connection is pretty...
ludicrous.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. So, you know, as we're wrapping up, your book, A to Z of Grenada Heritage, when will it be available?
It is kind of available. It's available on Amazon. The A to Z of Grenada Heritage. It is available on Amazon. Art and Soul generally sells them. We're going to be doing a launch in September, the end of September. So we will do a launch in Grenada and start publicizing it.
Okay, so where will the launch be held?
We're not sure yet. We're still working on that.
Okay.
So that would be, we'll send out announcements and stuff.
Okay.
So that people are aware, because, you know, I spent a lot of time putting this together. I really think it captures. You know, for me, I describe it as a book I wish I had when I was growing up in Grenada.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
You
It's
know.
very interesting.
So-
I guess the ministry can also add it to the
Oh, for sure. Well,
because-
you know, it's something, it gives a little thing, a little piece of everything in
Yeah,
Grenada.
yeah.
It has a really good,
add it to the junior history.
a reference at the back. So
Yeah.
if you want to find out more about Jab Jab, it tells you the articles
Okay.
to go read to find out where I did my research and where some of the other ideas, other people's research as well.
Okay.
So I provide that so that you could come up with your own take on Jab Jab and even want to go further in looking at the
Very
research.
interesting.
So,
So, as a researcher of the jab, are you going to be playing the jab to this?
I'm a good observer of it. I end up getting job because I'm in, you know, I like to take pictures, I like to observe. I want to see the artists create.
Okay.
I enjoy that, you know. So taking the pictures and, you know, somebody has to record it.
Okay, guys. So, thank you for coming on the program. I'm sure that probably, if time permits, we may have another episode again, because it's very interesting information. And wish you all the best on the launch of your book. I hope that everything goes well. So, listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in today. This has been the Youth 360 program, and today we spoke about food safety in terms of avoiding food poisoning, and then we also spoke about try to delve into the origins of Jab Jab, you know. And while we are here, we'd like to wish our Bishop Clyde Martin Harvey, Bishop of the Diocese of St. George's in Grenada, a happy 6th anniversary on his episcopal ordination. Tongue twister here. But wish him all the best. Wish him many more anniversaries. And another 6 years again as Bishop. So we hope that he's having a wonderful day. We hope so. Also, what's happening? Tomorrow at Crow Show, we'll be doing Crow Show at 8 a.m. St. Martin de Porres. We'll be broadcasting Mass from Crow Show at 9:30 a.m. Sorry, I don't know why 8:30 is in my head. At 9:30 a.m. we'll be broadcasting Mass from Crow Show, St. Martin de Porres Parish. Also, parishes and the harvest. We have Good Shepherd RC Church harvest August the 7th. That's Emancipation Monday. We also have Holy Spirit Chantemel harvest, and we also have St. Matthew's RC Butch Grove. What else is having harvest? You can send in your flyers. Let us post it up for you. Let us know what's happening by you. However, in the meantime, for those of you going out tonight, whatever, King of the Grill, I think Juve in July, traditional Mass St. Mark's, you know, be safe out there and be your brother's keeper. If you're driving, don't drink. And if you're drinking, designate a sober driver. I have a designated driver. You know, and I cannot end the program without saying big up to the pilgrim in Portugal. You know, I see you all doing your thing out there. Keep flying the flag. Keep representing the diocese. And we look forward to having you come back and energize the diocese. Mission, and that's what we're going with. So, listeners and viewers, thank you for being with us today. I know you have a lot, so you can run out now. You can run out down to Mon Rouge. For those who have to take a little slip for Juve in July, you know, get your rest. But we those going to traditional mass in Victoria, do that. But we also hope to see you tomorrow at one of our mass centers. You know, do not say I'm too tired for mass. You know, but hope to see you. So it's been a good one. This is Kiss on signing out, saying have a good weekend and looking forward to seeing you next week. Hope next week we can get some of our artists in. You know, I hear that this groovy semi-finals and this poor semi-finals was like bullet going off, bomb going off. Something so? Bullet going up, bomb going off. It was real tough. So, congratulations to all the artists who made it onto the next stage. See you all next week, guys.